What if Ned led the North to seize King's Landing before Tywin? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Ned Stark looks up at the wall of King's Landing and considers his options carefully. Though many think that the royalists were broken at the Trident, it doesn't mean that the war is over. Jon Arryn insists that none of that matters so long as the Mad King is allowed to stay on his throne. It is a belief Ned is inclined to agree with. That is why some 15,000 Northmen and Riverlanders gather around him in preparation to storm the capital. But glancing up at those battlements once again, he questions their chances and worries about the casualties. Thousands of royalists escape the waters of the Trident, and many of them wound up here. He already spies a few prominent men atop the wall and clenches his fists as he signals an attack. Soon, arrows fill the air as both sides engage in an archery duel. He watches as the sun is briefly blotted out as the missiles rain down on men who scream and crumple to the ground. Many fall amidst the clash, but this is just a distraction as the real assault begins. Men-at-arms rush forward with ladders and siege equipment to scale the walls. The first men to climb the ladder are cut down, but these men are relentless. Soon, a few Northmen under the command of Great Jon Arryn reach the top of the wall and begin securing a foothold. For a moment, it seems that they might overwhelm the defenders, but this is a false hope, as their attacking force is beaten back when Sir Alistair rallies the Knights of the Wall and organizes a counterattack. It is the same situation in other parts of the walls, as Sir Stevron and Jason Mallister face equal opposition. Soon enough, a pattern developed as the rebels would launch an attack on the walls to try and capture it, while the rebels would beat them back, sometimes by the skin of their teeth. That is all Ned can do while he lacks any heavier siege weapons, but until the siege towers and trebuchets rise, he must rely on attacks like this. He also cannot let up either, as there are reports of Tywin Lannister marching to King's Landing. For most of the war, the Old Lion has brooded in Castle Rock, and this left both sides weary of him. While it does appear unlikely that they are here to join the Mad King, Ned dares not trust them and hopes to seize the capital beforehand, even if that means chipping away at the defenders' numbers bit by bit. The attacks continue for the next few days, offering some progress as the royalists' battered forces are whittled down further, though at great cost. A battering ram soon comes into play. This one is crude and made only from some hastily felled trees. It adds further pressure on the defenders, though at great cost to Ned's soldiers. Already, the men are gaining footholds on some parts of the wall, and it seems like it's only a matter of time before they fall. Finally, Rickard Karstark leads another bold strike that at last breaks the defenders and secures a tower. As he moves to secure their new foothold, panic spreads among the defenders, and more men begin to ascend while Great Jon and the Freys redouble their efforts to create more openings. The defenders manage to keep them back, but suddenly panic spreads in their ranks as they catch word of trouble in the Red Keep. The breathless soldier announces that the king has fallen. The news spreads like a shockwave, and men look around at each other in shock. Their expressions ask one question: why are they still fighting here when the man they are protecting is dead? Soon, men-at-arms begin to throw down their weapons while others strip off their armor and try to hide with the population. Chaos spreads, and the walls that the Northmen have fought so hard to capture now lie open before them. As soon as Ned makes it over the top, he calls for a group of his most trusted men to accompany him to the Red Keep. He is expecting a fight, but the Gold Cloaks here seem equally disorganized. Some do not even fight and open the gates to them. Ned hurries inside, determined to see the truth of the matter himself, but does not need to travel far. At the foot of the Iron Throne, the body of the Mad King lies with Sir Jaime standing above him. The Lord of Winterfell's face darkens as he approaches, his fingers clenching into a fist.
Is this your work, Sir Jaime? It is. You were his sworn sword. Why? I believe the words you should be saying are, thank you. I will not thank an oathbreaker. Now you did not answer my question. What possessed you to do this? Did you think it was your father outside those gates? My father? Why would he? No. I did this because Ares would have been the death of us all. Where are his grandchildren? Rhaegar's family? They're in the tower. I left men to guard them.
Ned orders his men to fetch them as he glares at Jaime, wondering what he is thinking. Soon enough, the children are brought before them, terrified and unhurt. Elia holds Aegon close to her chest, refusing to relinquish him despite assurances that no harm will come upon them. When he looks at Jaime again, he remains confused and wonders what is the meaning of this. Why would he kill the Mad King, but spare the rest of Rhaegar's family? The confusion must have been plain on his face, because the knight gave a rueful smile.
They were about to kill us all. You think the Mad King would have just allowed you to take his city and capture him? He has contingencies in place, plans that would destroy us all. He hoped to use it on my father, But once he saw your banners starting to fly on the wall, he realized he had to burn us all. Burn us all? Wildfire.
That word, that one word, sends the entire room into silence. Ned glances at his bannermen. Their faces went ashen, and they looked around, staring at the ground beneath their feet as if expecting it to go up in green flames.
You have my thanks, Sir Jaime, and my apologies.
Jaime was taken off guard by that, but managed to nod his head. Lord Eddard orders his men to gather the pyromancers and begin removing the wildfire as quickly as they can, while the rest of the army secures the capital. A few days later, Lord Tywin and his army arrive, but find the direwolf banner now flapping atop the battlements. A week later, Robert and his men arrive, and the Iron Throne is waiting for him. When the children of Rhaegar are presented to him, Tywin advises the newly made king to execute them and prevent them from becoming a threat. This is an offer that Jaime and Ned both furiously object to. The Kingslayer did not just risk his life for them to die this way, and when Robert floats the idea, Ned says that if he truly intends that, he best do it himself. It is a bold gamble, and Robert glares at his friend. However, he cannot truly argue with Ned on it. As he looks over at the Targaryens, neither can understand what is fully happening. Though he calls for his hammer, Robert cannot do it. In the end, he allows them to be taken away. As an alternative, Jon Arryn proposes keeping them in the capital, or the Eyrie, to ensure that they grow up to be allies rather than foes. Jon personally takes charge of them and vows to raise them as one of his own. It is a bitter compromise for everyone, but one that Robert accepts, as opposed to killing them himself. Ned breathes a sigh of relief and glances at Jaime, who looks equally pleased. For Elia, she will be allowed to raise them, and if they prove to be loyal friends to the crown, they will be allowed to return to Dorne. As for Tywin, that matter is much simpler. His contributions to the war are minuscule, as it is clear that Jaime was acting on his own. No one in the rebel camp sees much need to placate him. They immediately reject his succession of fostering the Targaryen children and his marriage pact between Cersei and Robert. Jaime is retained as a member of the Kingsguard, and Robert fully supports this decision when he hears of what he did to the Mad King. A marriage between Stannis and Cersei is floated, but also rejected. In the end, they only offer Tywin some economic concessions and a position in the small council as Master of Laws. This leaves the Lord of Castle Rock furious. He had hoped to sit out the war and prevent unnecessary destruction, but it also prevented him from reaping many rewards. Instead, Jon Arryn focuses on courting the defeated rebels. Protecting Elia and her children is enough to pacify Dorne. However, with the Reach, Jon Arryn decides he must secure their alliance to prevent them from allying with Tywin. Thankfully, Mace is eager to curry favor with the new king and offers his sister, Mina, to Robert as his wife. With that, the war comes to an end, and all declare Robert as the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. As the armies begin marching home, Varys watches from the shadows, smiling to himself as he considers what this might mean. The Red Dragon has at long last fallen, and while the stag might rule, there are other dragons stirring far from here. But thoughts of dragons and Targaryens soon disappear from the public mind as everyone focuses on rebuilding. Thankfully, the marriage between Robert and Mina proves remarkably happy. While Robert never loves her the same way he did Lyanna, she still proves to be good company and instead tries to take care of him however she can. She gladly takes part in the trappings of court, sharing drinks during feasts, cheering him on when Robert joins melees, and sharing gossip with him when he sits bored. Robert comes to appreciate these small gestures and finds himself enjoying the marriage more than expected. For his part, he makes an effort to avoid overindulging in his habits, whether it be drinking or feasting. They soon give birth to a son, a boy named Lionel. Even the Greyjoy rebellion cannot dampen the realm's cheer. Rather than being angered, Robert is pleased with this rebellion and the chance to test his mettle on the battlefield yet again. He eagerly rides out to crush these rebels as he did with the Targaryens and the Trident. The rest of the realm agrees as they all ride out to confront them. Their forces prove to be more than a match as the Ironborn are first driven back from their coastal hidings and then towards the Iron Islands themselves. While some fortifications hold out for a time, they all fall one by one, including Pike itself. When the seat of House Greyjoy burns, the realm hails Robert as the warrior king once more. He has little interest in occupying the Iron Islands, and is happy to accept the surrender of Lord Balon. Yet the Iron Islands remain a ruin, and amidst the smoke and charred towns, Tywin Lannister finds his chance to expand Lannister influence. Varys approaches him in secret, telling him of Robert's disinterest in rebuilding the Isles. If he cannot do it through the Iron Throne, then he will claw it away from him.
The Iron Islands must be rebuilt, your grace. Their fleet destroyed, their lords humbled. What of it?
Don't tell me you wish to rebuild these reavers' dens.
I hope to make them better than simple reavers' dens. Leave them in destruction, and they will find themselves having no choice but to seize their axes yet again to raid the coast, but to make bustling towns, and they will question why they ever wished for independence.
You want to make the Ironborn traders? Good luck with that, but I won't stop you if you want to try.
I obey as ever, your grace. If it pleases you, Castle Rock will see the islands reforged.
Aye, have at it then. You want the mess, you clean it. Consider it my thanks for sitting pretty in your rock during the rebellion.
Tywin's bow hides the flicker of triumph in his eyes. Yet not all is triumph in Robert's eyes. Robert's son Lionel grows into a thoughtful boy, eager and bright-eyed, but not the warrior Robert dreamed of. In the yard, Lionel sweats with his wooden sword, but his movements lack the raw fire of his father. When he falters, his tutor corrects him, and Lionel smiles sheepishly before turning back to his books. Later, Robert finds him in the solar, bent over a tome of tactics. When it comes to drawing up battle plans, he is more adept at this than holding a sword, and while Robert recognizes their importance, he still cannot help but worry. During his time, Lionel grows up preferring to spend more time with his mother in Renly at court. There, he would watch tourneys rather than taking part in them, enjoying balls and feasting instead of going hunting.
I wanted a warrior, a stag with antlers sharp as steel. Instead, I have a boy who plays with maps and words.
You wanted a son to bring peace to your realm. Peace does not always need a hammer, Robert.
Better a clever king than a dead one, Robert. Lionel's wit may have kept him alive, or your strength would have led you to another charge. And what if the Greyjoy rebellion happens again? There are plenty of lords who would want this damn chair. When that time comes, he doesn't have the strength to fight for it.
Do not underestimate our boy. He'll fight for it, though perhaps it is not as you expected it.
Besides, if there is a war, he'll be smart enough to appoint men who can win it for him. Spoken like a boy who's never set foot on a battlefield. When it comes to war, men know who slog in the mud with them and those who don't. I have a dynasty now on my shoulders. And what kind of king would I be if it didn't survive me?
Husband, if I didn't hear you right, you almost sounded interested in ruling.
Funny, my dear. Very funny.
Robert, you worry for a dynasty that has barely begun. Your boy is young, and he is healthy and happy. Isn't that what matters most? He is yet to show his real talent. Give him time, my love.
Robert does not laugh. He drinks deep, eyes heavy with doubt, but he nods his head. But his worries are not entirely unfounded. Meanwhile, Dorne stews. At first, the Martells gave thanks for Elia's survival, for the sparing of her children. They endured Robert's coldness, even his scorn, understanding his distrust of them and the Targaryen children. The war was still fresh, and they had hoped that in time the wound would heal, but as the years pass, there was no warming of relations. Though Robert allowed the Targaryens to live, that was the only gift he gave them. Even years under Jon Arryn's careful watch did little to ease his anger towards them. Vows were said and reiterated both privately and publicly that none of them would ever claim the Iron Throne. Letters assure them of their honorable intentions, and being surrounded by Robert's loyalists do little to quell his anger. They were all born Targaryens, and that is enough to condemn them. Even with Elia's plea to let her children go home to Dorne, Robert remains staunchly unwilling to let them out of his sight, always keeping them under watch, even when they visit Sunspear, treating them like virtual prisoners in their home. To them, they are not dragons, but a caged snake, obedient for now, but poised to strike once he lets them out of his sight. It doesn't help that they grow up to be respected individuals. Aegon and Viserys both prove promising with the lance and sword, participating in the same tourneys that Lionel refuses to join. Meanwhile, Daenerys grows up to be a great beauty, famed for her kindness and her quick wit. Even though Rhaenys never set foot in Dorne, she observes what little culture her mother can send her. Clothing, jewels, books, even her horse was born and bred in Dorne. She grows up looking like the Dornish princess of old. This allows them to grow up beloved by nobles and common alike. They are frequent participants in the same events that Lionel attends, and the difference between them becomes apparent, even to their late father and grandfather, the Mad King. The sight of the noble and gallant new generation of Targaryens fills them with excitement. Though the Targaryens have little real political power, or even a seat to call their own, they gain considerable soft power. That is precisely what Robert fears the most. That is why he refuses them many honors that even lesser nobles are granted, nor does he trust them with any responsibilities that might give them any influence in court. Rather than remaining major players across the Seven Kingdoms, they are made to remain in the Vale, in virtual exile from the capital. They are not even allowed to Dragonstone, and are only allowed to Sunspear under close watch. His advisors, like Jon Arryn, urge Robert to reconsider these decisions, as rather than helping them gain influence, they diminish him and make him appear weak, since he is frightened of these children. Yet Robert refuses to budge. The Dornish notice this, and their anger towards Robert slowly grows. They recognize that Aegon and Rhaenys are just as much Martells as they are Targaryens, and his actions are a direct insult to them. Seeing this, the relationships become tense with Dorne. Trade slowly stops, and they begin to withdraw from the Seven Kingdoms. While he makes some efforts to reverse this tide, even appointing Renly as his ambassador to Dorne, it does little to stem the tide. Regarding Lionel, Robert decides to send him to foster in the Vale, as ward of Jon Arryn. He thinks back of his own time there, and how it made him the warrior he became. And Robert comes to think it is the best way to toughen up his boy.
The Vale. Do you truly think that is wise? Surely he will get more experience ruling here in the capital. Besides, he seems so happy here.
Some of my best days were spent in the Vale. Jon Arryn was like a second father to me. He'll head there for a year or two with Jon, and I'll appoint Ned to rule in his absence. I have no doubt that Lord Jon will treat Lionel well. He's practically the boy's grandfather.
It isn't Lord Arryn's treatment that worries me. It is that while this warding worked for you, it may not work for Lionel. You two are different people, if you haven't noticed, Robert.
I know. But ruling the Seven Kingdoms won't matter when you lack the iron grip to hold it. The boy needs to be toughened up. As does Jon's boy, if I hear right. Gods, these boys are all becoming so feeble.
Or maybe they simply have the luxury to grow up in a time where they must be killers. It vexes you that Lionel is not a warrior like you, but forcing him like this changes nothing. All it does is push him away, literally, here. And how will Jon rule if he is caring for him in the Vale?
I'll bring Ned here to rule, or even Stannis if necessary. He helped me become a man, and maybe he'll do the same for Lionel. Besides, it's time he understands what happens if he doesn't shape up. Those dragons are there, and he'll need to see how precarious his position is. All those balls and plays he likes to attend won't matter if we're at war. What he needs is steel in his spine. Let him see Aegon, Viserys, all of them. Let him measure himself against them. And maybe that will light the fire in him.
Or he will see them for what they are. Children with long shadows, and not worth chasing. You risk souring him further. But Robert will not be moved. Within a fortnight, Lionel Baratheon rides east, guarded by sworn swords to the Vale. Jon is bothered by being dismissed from court like this, but he can see the intensity in Robert's eyes. How he desperately wishes for this to work, as if he can mold another him. Jon does not have the heart to tell Robert how wrong he is, and simply bows his head, promising he will do what he can while hoping that Robert will come to see the error of his ways. He does not go alone, accompanied by Jaime Lannister, who offers to serve as Lionel's protector. The Eyrie greets him with cool winds and kinder company than he expected, while the sound of the castle rings with the sound of blades as the dragons and stag test themselves against each other. There is none of the hatred expected. The four dragons have long lived in the shadow of their father, and rather than distrust the shy prince, they welcome him. Aegon, taller and quicker with a blade, clasps Lionel's hand after a spar.
You fight better than you think. Just that your mind works faster than your hands. Not well enough. It seems I remain a middling swordsman. Nothing wrong with being middling at something. Sometimes the best quality is that someone can recognize their own limitations. If you don't know how to manage crops, you hire a steward to do it for you. That is what ruling is. My father used to say that.
If only he remembered that, we wouldn't be in this situation.
Your line doesn't end with the Mad King. You live now, and that means you can change us.
That is, if your father ever allows us to leave this place. I long for the sands of my homeland.
My father isn't the end of my line either. I will rule one day, and I'll make sure you have a place in my court.
Around him, the dragons smile, and he finds himself welcome. And yet, as he continues to test himself against them, he becomes well aware of his shortcomings. Aegon's laughter is louder, his jousts more admired. Viserys cuts a finer figure, and is admired by the ladies in the court. Daenerys can move people. Even Rhaenys rides with grace Lionel cannot match. He withdraws more and more, until Jon Arryn finds him sulking in the rookery.
You think yourself lacking, but I tell you, boy, a realm cannot be held by strength of arms alone. Look at Robert. His hammer won the throne, aye. But what holds it still? Counsel. Oaths. Bonds.
He wanted a warrior.
Then be a different kind of warrior. The realm will need that as much as it ever needed Robert's hammer.
The greatest burden is not the crown, young prince. It is the expectation of fathers. Even to this day, my father never ceases to ask me to put aside my white cloak. Your father wants a warrior. Mine wants a lord. Seems we've disappointed both. How have you disappointed Lord Tywin? You ended the war just as much as my father did when he cut down the Mad King. I could have cut down 12 Mad Kings, and my father would still look at me like I'm lacking. Not until I become the heir he wants. So just ask yourself this. Do you think you can be the warrior he thinks you can be? I'll never be like my father, or like them. Then do not focus on what others expect you to be, and focus on what you can. Otherwise, you will never move beyond where you are now. Do you know what they call my greatest deed? Kingslaying. A man who stabbed a feeble old king in the back. That is what I am remembered for. But you saved thousands. Aye, and yet my oaths were broken. Duty weighs heavier than steel, boy. Heavier than any hammer or sword. So do ask yourself this as well. Which is the greater feat? To bear this duty forced upon you and walk the path others have laid out for you, or blaze your own path regardless of what others think?
The words settle into Lionel's heart, deeper than he realizes. That night, as the feast roars in the hall, he lingers at the edge of the table, watching the Targaryens laugh and shine. Aegon catches his eye, raising a cup in friendly salute. Daenerys offers him a small, encouraging smile. And Lionel, still uncertain, still young, begins to feel something take root within him. Not the fire Robert dreamed of, but the words of Jaime Lannister. Yet while the royals mingle in the Vale, elsewhere, other forces stir. In the Westerlands, Tywin has not risen to the heights that he had dreamed, but he has not been idle either. The first step was the Ironborn, whose islands he rebuilt. While they certainly are savages and treacherous wretches, the opportunity was too good to pass up. Balon is a vengeful man who will never accept the man who defeated him as king. But working with Tywin, a man who had little to do with his defeat but offered gold, he can. For all of his talk of the old ways, he is happy to accept this gold to rebuild his fleet and rearm his warriors. Yet Tywin keeps him on a tight leash. While Balon wishes to declare war and make their alliance openly, the Lannisters remind him that they can only strike when the time is right. Meanwhile, in the Riverlands, Cersei is married off to Edmure Tully, while Jon Arryn and Robert don't see much reason to work with Robert. Lord Hoster sees no reason in maintaining hostilities with his neighbors and offers an alliance. With that, his eastern and western borders are secure, allowing him to concentrate on the south if things come to war. Varys notices this and smiles. A man like Tywin does not make preparations like this if he's not planning to do something. That is why he sends him a secret message, asking him to meet in the ruins of the Old Stones, offering his aid. Tywin receives this message with skepticism, at least at first, but he always knows that even with his preparations, his chances of victory are small, and he will need to do more if he is to ensure the survival of his house. Leaving Kevan in command of the Rock, Tywin rides out in the dead of night. He takes a ship to Seaguard, and then rides through the night into the ancient castle. He loops around the hill, watching the ruins grow larger and larger. The ancient stone has long been overrun by the elements, with moss and vines swallowing up the stone while its very foundations are covered in weeds. Tywin clenches his fist and shakes his head. If he's not careful, this may be the fate that befalls House Lannister. However, so long as he lives, he will not allow such an inglorious end to his destiny. By the time he reaches the top, a small wooden table, remarkably untouched by the elements, has been placed at the center of the ruins. There is already a figure there, the lean shape of the Red Viper.
It appears we have both been summoned by our benefactor. Indeed.
From the shadows of the tower, Varys steps out, his footsteps hardly making a sound, while a grim smile plays across his face.
Welcome, gentlemen. I am certain both of you are curious as to why I summoned you here. The answer is simple. We share a common enemy. King Robert has wronged all of us. He has insulted the honor of your houses and ruined my plans. Plans. It seems to me you are doing quite well for yourself, Spider. You remain in the King's small council as his Master of Whispers, which does raise the question as to whether this is all just some trap designed to catch us committing treason. Yes, it is true I serve the King, just not the one I wished to serve. No, you can see why the Stag was never meant to rule in Robert's decisions. The Mad King was guided only by his paranoia and his emotions, and in many ways, Robert is right on that path as well. Yet, we do not need to settle on this misrule when there are so many other options.
Are you suggesting removing the king from power? Rebellion?
I am suggesting that King Robert might be happier without his crown. He might find more fulfillment in his life if he were always fighting, such as, perhaps, the Night's Watch. Meanwhile, you two might appear happier if your positions in court were elevated.
Which raises the question of who shall take his place once the crown has been removed from his head.
There certainly are many candidates. The dragons have come a long way in showing their line is far from extinguished. They remain quite popular in court. If things should come to war, many houses in the Riverlands and in the Vale may rise up for them.
And there are 4 of them. It is only a matter of selecting the most suitable one.
Oh, I'm afraid there must be some sort of misunderstanding between us. My goal is not to see a Targaryen on the throne. A dragon, to be sure, but this dynasty has run its course, and it is time for another. One who has suffered under the Targaryens as well, and who has lived their lives in exile because of them.
The Blackfires. You speak of them. Yet their house is gone. It died with Melis, the monstrous. The Stepstones. I led my father's army to make sure of it.
That was the male line, which was extinguished. The female line still lives. There is a boy who lives in exile, one groomed to be king, and I shall see him crowned. With your support, we may be able to make that happen, my lords.
Even if what you say is true, my nephew and niece are Targaryens. You expect me to believe you will simply allow them to rule alongside you, or even live, for that matter.
Your concern is well-founded, but let me assure you that nothing of the sort will happen. You see, though this boy is trained to rule, he is only one, the last Blackfire. Because of that, he requires the Targaryen support to grant him legitimacy, and who knows, he might even be inclined to wed one to legitimize his rule. As for his hand, I can think of no better person than Tywin Lannister.
With that, the offer is placed out there, and both men glance at one another. They have been wronged by Robert, that is true, but what they will do next crosses a line into treason. As the offer dangles there, neither man says anything, but Varys offers them a grim smile as he steps back into the shadows. The storm breaks at Cracklaw Point. The Golden Company lands in force, banners snapping in the sea wind. Black dragons on red rise above their ranks, a symbol thought extinguished. Their captains spread word swiftly of their declaration. Robert Baratheon is a usurper, unfit to rule. The Blackfire line, they claim, lives on through a boy groomed to be king, Aegon VI of House Blackfire. With Tywin's quiet founding, coin flows where swords hesitate. In the Riverlands, old grudges stir. Several river lords who once bled for Rhaegar now rally to this new dragon once he had promised to add Targaryens to his court. He vows to wed Rhaenys Targaryen and name Prince Aegon Targaryen into his Kingsguard. Soon, the river lords of Derry and Mooten declare for him as he emerges from Cracklaw Point, accompanied by the Bruins, Bogs, and Crabs. When word reaches King's Landing, Robert slams his fist upon the council table.
Another dragon pretender. Damn them all. We'll smash them, the same as the rest. This foe is no rabble. The Golden Company is disciplined, well armed. If they draw strength from the Riverlands, they will not be easily dislodged. Then we'll crush them in the Riverlands before they march west. But first, the Targaryen brats. Lock them away. No whispers of dragons at my back while I fight one at my front. Robert, they'll stay put in the Eyrie under guard. If they so much as blink wrong, I'll not hesitate. I can't have them risking this Blackfire brat.
When they are informed of this development, their faces darken. None worse than Viserys, who throws his cup against the wall until it smashes.
He doesn't trust us. He never will. No matter what we do, he will always look for a way to punish us. How long must we suffer this humiliation? Viserys, I understand you're angry. I know why and no one blames you. But this pretender will bring us to ruin. So what are we supposed to do? Simply accept our punishment with a smile on our face and hope your father throws us some scraps. Even if I don't become king, I will not watch as my family name is smeared over and over again. Let him have his war. I will not rot in a cage while my bloodline fights for its life. If the Blackfire boy claims descent from us, then I'll ride with him and remind him he owes any claim to us.
We were never meant to be prisoners. Better to fight than wait for Robert's next insult.
Please, you're my friends. Stay. Prove him wrong.
Rhaenys touches his cheek gently.
You're a good boy, Lime. Better than your father. But there is no proving him wrong once he's made up his mind. You're proof of that.
The two of them slip out in the dead of night, bribing a guard from House Grafton, who also harbors Targaryen sympathies, to help them escape. Soon, Viserys and Rhaenys slips away, heading west towards the Golden Company's banners. That leaves Aegon and Daenerys. They stand together in the Erie's courtyard as dawn breaks, watching their kin vanish down the mountain passes.
We cannot stay either. Robert will never forgive us if they ride with the Blackfires. He'll kill us as a punishment.
I am afraid that this is more than mere speculation, too. All of you must go west. If one of my own household guard was capable of this, then I can no longer guarantee your safety. Take a ship to the Reach and gather allies. I will bring the Vale back in line.
Within days, the trio is gone, cloaked and silent, bound for Highgarden to seek safety and perhaps support. In the Riverlands, war burns as Robert and Aegon VI's army clashes. The Blackfire's first target is Harrenhal, still scarred by fire and water, yet its gates remain open to him, and it falls without a fight. The fight comes days later as Robert's army tries to capture it. The Stag and the Crowned Stag fly together, Stormlanders, Riverlands, and Reachmen massing in their thousands. Robert himself takes to the field, hammer in hand, roaring for war. The two armies clash on the banks of the God's Eye. The lake runs red with blood as pikemen brace against Baratheon charges. The Golden Company holds its ground, disciplined ranks weathering Robert's fury. Though they pay dearly for it, the ruins remain his. For weeks, the war spreads, burning villages, sieges laid, castles turning cloaks. At Stony Sept, Robert crushes a detachment of mercenaries, his hammer breaking their line. But at Maidenpool, the Golden Company seizes the port, opening the way for more sellswords to land. Though Aegon VI is young, he proves remarkably dutiful to dislodge, especially when Viserys and Rhaenyra arrive at his camp and pledge their swords to his cause. Viserys soon becomes a commander of his cavalry, launching quick strikes across royalist positions, while Rhaenys acts as a diplomat to the Dornish, helping them to coordinate their strategy with Aegon. Their appearance causes many neutral houses whose loyalty is in question to at last commit to war. Soon enough, the war grows so large that Robert must call for reinforcements. Ned rides south with an army of Northmen, while Renly rides with Stannis to the Reach to help raise fresh levies. Even Mina joins there to speak with her brother and convince him to send more men. There, they find Lionel and their two companions.
You were told to remain away from the battlefield, and now I know for a fact those two should not be here. I have half a mind to take you back to King's Landing. We need to remain here and help. Father will never accept the Targaryens as allies, not unless we do something big, and he won't take me seriously until I help him win this war. Even you two must realize this war is not going well. We'll need everything to turn the tide. Damn boy. You're too smart by half. Fine. If you can help us, I suppose I'd be a fool to turn you aside. Keeping you here is dangerous. The type of thing a responsible parent wouldn't want you doing. Good thing I'm an uncle.
Yet Mina is not convinced. She appears after the others leave, looking over at her son. At the sight of her, the others step back and leave so she may speak to him alone.
Lionel, your place is in King's Landing, not in a war-torn land. What do you hope to accomplish here? Do you plan on leading the army?
If that is what is required of me.
Your father is fighting this war now. He and I will sleep much easier if we know that our son and heir is not at risk of being killed.
If I go back, then I will never be able to rule. People will remember me as the king who fled. I cannot do that to the realm. I cannot do that to myself. If I go, they will see weakness.
You are my child, not Robert's hammer. Come home before this war devours you.
Mother, you worry for me. I love you for that. But now I don't need you to worry. I need you to have faith in me. I know I am not father. I don't have his strength. I won't do anything foolish, but I will help in whatever way I can. I will meet with the others, rally the men, plan strategies. But I need to be here, so they know the royal family has not abandoned them.
Mina bites her lip, feeling tears slip through her eyes as she relents at last and promises to support him. He soon rides out with Aegon and Daenerys to begin rallying support for Robert. They meet with those houses who stood against Robert and suffered for it. They remind them that Robert remains strong as ever. They go to houses who have personally stood with Rhaegar on the Trident and reminded them of the sight of Robert during the battle against the Dragon Prince. What can this pale worm do to oppose him? Daenerys' words are like silk as she talks to the houses. She listens, smiles, touches hands, and charms even the most skeptical bannerman. Lionel, standing beside her, lends the appearance of royal sanction, Robert's heir nodding as if in agreement. Meanwhile, Aegon rides the tourney fields, crossing swords with Reach Knights, his laughter ringing louder than the clash of steel. While many are worried or eager to go to war, they stop and listen to the boy when he speaks, as his words calm their nerves and remind them of the glory that awaits. Soon, many volunteered to personally serve under the army of Aegon and Lionel. But before they can march and mobilize, news comes like a sword thrust. Dornish banners cross the Red Mountains, spears glinting in the sun. Prince Oberyn leads them north, forcing Mace Tyrell to turn half his strength southward. And then, the Ironborn harry the coast, forcing the Red Winds and Hightowers to concentrate their strength to prevent the coastline from being completely overrun and holding their levies back. When Stannis advances north to the Riverlands, he only has a third of what the Reach had promised. In that moment, Tywin Lannister strikes. From the north, Lannister banners pour into the Reach. Half of their standing forces take part while the other half strike through the Golden Tooth to join the Blackfire army. Tywin himself sets his eyes upon Highgarden. If he can seize it, the Tyrells will break. More importantly, to Lionel. From the Lannister camp, a raven comes from Jaime. "Bring me the boy and the dragon whelp. Do not fail me." Jaime reads the words by firelight, his father's words no doubt. For years, the people have called him Kingslayer. What is one more dishonor to add to it? At least this time, he won't kill anyone. Then, he tosses it into the flames.
No, father. Not this time.
He tells Lionel about it and warns him to keep an eye out. Instead, sends word to Ned Stark, whose army is already clashing with Tywin's as he unites with Robert and struggles to defend Riverrun from Harrenhal and the Golden Tooth. When word reaches him, Ned detaches some 5,000 men and rides south with all haste to reinforce the Reach and free up their army to join the war effort. In the meantime, Tywin marches unopposed through the Reach, and each castle he passes burns or bends the knee. House Rowan and Oakhart write that they will delay him as much as they can, but they struggle to hold the line. It is only a matter of time before they are overwhelmed.
If we wait, Highgarden falls. We must act. Ride out and reinforce them, at least until Lord Stark arrives. You have 2,000 men.
Lord Mace took most of my men to reinforce the Southern Army.
Then we'll make him think I have more.
As he studies the map, Lionel thinks desperately for a strategy, but he studies the plains and rivers and hills that make up the Reach, and he thinks of a plan. It is desperate and foolish, but it is all he has. They march under the cover of night, seizing a hill overlooking the Tyrell heartland and a short distance away from the defensive fortifications made by Lord Rowan. Runners are sent to tell him, telling them of his position and the promise of reinforcements. The rest of the small army works throughout the night and the following day to fortify and prepare for their position for an attack. When Tywin's army arrives, they are greeted by a great hill lined with a wooden palisade and hundreds of banners. Scouts return claiming Tyrells have well brought a relief army larger than theirs. For a time, it works. Tywin halts his advance, wary. Lionel adds to the chaos by clanging drums and sounding horns while his men shout, making it appear like a great host is there. But the old lion does not flinch forever. A study of Mace's movements tell him this isn't possible, not unless he's armed every peasant in his lands. With a curl of his lip, he sends a portion of his force to scour the hill, while another batters the Rowan forces to ensure they cannot reinforce them. The battle begins at dawn. Arrows rain down the slopes, cutting the first wave down. However, these are fewer than expected, and the Lannisters begin to rally, realizing that this isn't a great host awaiting them. Soon, they begin to rush the slopes with renewed energy. This eagerness proves to be their mistake, as men disappear into the pit traps with sharpened stakes. Others have rocks rolled down on them, and the rest lose their footing on the uneven ground, which was made even worse through careful preparation by Lionel's men. But still, hundreds clear the path and advance further until the lower slopes burst into emerald flame as wildfire consumes the first wave. Before marching out, Lionel helped himself to some of the wildfire Stannis brought, and now it pays off as the fire ravages their army, sending panic across those who stand there and leaving those who remain scattered. Still, they come, shields raised, climbing higher. Those men who reach the top find no more tricks awaiting them. Instead, Aegon screams defiantly as his men rush down to meet them. Clashes charge across the hill as the Lannisters spread out and attack multiple points. Despite the chaos, Tywin funnels more men, knowing that such traps could not be played a second time, and without traps, it is now a matter of skill and numbers. Aegon and Jaime take command of the main defenses, their weapons flashing as they cut through the advancing Lannister soldiers. Lionel stays close too, helping rally the men with encouraging words. Yet twice Jaime drags Lionel from dagger, and twice their air rises again, mud and blood streaking his face, refusing to yield. By midday, the hill is a carnal ground, the air thick with smoke and screams. The defenders are breaking, their strength fading to the larger force, and many begin to succumb to their injuries while others simply run off. And then, a small force circles around where their defenses are weakest and strikes from the rear, overwhelming the few defenders. Jaime and Aegon have their hands full dealing with an oncoming attack, but Lionel sees it and decides to act. Taking up a sword, Lionel leaps down the rock and rushes at these men, cutting down the first men-at-arms who try to confront him. But as he falls, more take his place, and the defenders surrounding him struggle to raise their weapons. Despite that, Lionel shouts defiantly and raises his blade.
In the name of King Robert, you shall not pass.
Despite his bold words, when he tries to strike one man down, he is pushed aside, and his sword flies from his grip. However, as the men raise their spears, a horn sounds in the distance. Wolf banners crest the horizon. Ned Stark's host crushes into Tywin's flank, scattering Lannister lines. The men-at-arms all look at each other in surprise, staring at the collapsing battle lines. When some rush to capture Lionel, Jaime appears from behind and cuts them down. The survivors decide to withdraw, though there is nowhere to go, as down below, the Old Lion's army is overwhelmed and scattered. While they withdraw, Lord Rowan goes on the attack and cuts them down. On the hilltop, Lionel stands swaying, his sword slick with blood. His men cheer raggedly around him. Jaime grips his shoulder and steadies him.
You've held, boy. You've done it.
And Lionel, chest heaving, lifts the stag banner higher into the smoky sky. When Ned meets them, Jaime and Lord Stark clasp hands as they welcome each other. Together with the Rowan and Oakheart forces, they rush south to sweep across the coast and free the Redwyne and Hightower forces. Together, they begin their march towards the Riverlands and join up with Stannis. Meanwhile, seeing Tywin's defeat, many river lords who sided against Robert now rush to bend the knee, while the Westermen and the Golden Tooth retreat, freeing up forces to focus on the Blackfire army. The final clash takes place outside the walls of Maidenpool, as the royal fleet blocks off their escape and the Blackfire forces make their final stand. In the end, Aegon VI is cut down by Robert, who smashes his way through his army guard. With that, Aegon VI and the 6th Blackfire Rebellion come to an end. Yet, when he hears of his son's action in the Reach, Robert smiles and realizes that the greatest accomplishment doesn't belong to him. When he returns to King's Landing, Tywin is executed, but not before revealing Varys' involvement. Oberyn nearly shares the same fate, but Mina speaks out for him. She reminds Robert that it was his actions that alienated the Dornish, and so settles for exiling him instead. The same is true for Viserys and Rhaenys, as Lionel speaks out in defense of them. When Robert initially rages, his son convinces him to show mercy, and he relents. Instead, they are both kept in King's Landing as hostages, and offer the chance to redeem themselves. However, for the first time in his life, Robert means it. As for Aegon and Daenerys, both are at last fully pardoned, being welcomed in court not as hostages, but as equals and the companions of Lionel, who is raised up as a hero of the Reach. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.